Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How's everyone doing today? What a beautiful day in Pensacola, and we are so happy to see all of you here today. My name is Denise Gunn, and I use the pronouns she and her, and I would like to take this opportunity to ask everyone to please ensure all your electronic devices are silenced, so that we remain respectful of the speakers and the singers. We're very excited to see all you beautiful faces there, but we're particularly excited to have all of our guests with us, and we would like to welcome you today. We are so glad you're here. I met a couple of you at the front door a few minutes ago. If I missed any, I apologize. A lot going on this morning, but out on the credenza we have some guest cards. We would love for you to fill one of those out, and please look for any of us after the service if you have any questions or would like more information. And in the programs that are in the back, they're not a normal order of service guide, but I believe, is there information in those for our guests? Yes. Yes, okay. You may look in those as well. And I'm just up here rambling, so I kind of lost my place, but I think I'm done now, Reverend Alice. So it's now time for the announcements. And the first announcement is from Laura Keith King. Laura, we all know Laura, most of us do anyway. Laura Keith King is looking for people to train in video editing for our church services. We've been posting for this for some time, and this is a really critical need for our church. If any of you would potentially be interested, please reach out to Laura. Laura said it's fun and a great thing to know how to do, and that's true. It's easier than you may think, but you do need a Mac computer. Please contact her if you might be interested. And it is a critical need, so if any of you are on the fence, please consider. You can at least get with her and kind of see what it's about, and it might be something you really enjoy. This announcement is from Patty Underwood. The first Sunday of the month is Manna Food Sunday. Please remember to bring shelf-stable food to help feed the hungry in our community. Last month, we donated 220 pounds of fresh citrus fruit, but we had very little in the way of canned goods. Besides canned goods, they also accept personal items like toothpaste or deodorant, baby food, or diapers. You can bring these goods anytime and just put them in the back door area, and Patty will take them to Manna the first week of the month. And thank you to all who have provided for others and those of you who will provide for others in the future. At this time, Lori Winterberg will be coming up to provide an announcement regarding the Buy It Now that we have been working on.
We did a little experiment, a pilot project, and we called it Buy It Now, inspired by eBay, using some really cool software. But the Buy It Now sale, it netted $1,350 after the transaction fees, and there's still a few more payments yet to come in. The online store closed Friday at noon. We had only projected an income of $500, so it definitely counts as a success. We want to thank everybody who donated and to everybody who shopped. There are some of the donors who brought the things that the shoppers bought for you to pick up today, and if you bought something and you don't have it already, look in the foyer, it might be there. Or if you need to connect up with who the donor was, I can help you. Aaron Renfro can help you so we can get you connected. But for a little experiment, it worked out very good. Thanks.
Awesome job, finance team. Thank you so much for all your hard work on this. And thank you for some really cool items. I went shopping and bought a few for myself, and I was looking for more. I bet next time we have it, we'll have a whole lot more items to shop from, which we're all doing a lot of online shopping these days, so it was perfect for us. The next announcement is to announce the speaker for today for our second hour, and I was going to do that. However, we have a member of our church who is good friends with him, and I'm going to give her the opportunity because she knows him rather than reading something about him. Penny, if you would come up and introduce our second hour speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Penny, and I use pronouns she and her, and my friend Chuck Listener is in the back with, as he put it, the rowdies. Would you stand for a moment, Chuck? I met Chuck through Temple Bethel. He was my Hebrew teacher for 2 years, and I'm glad to call him friend. He's a photographer. He's down at the gallery, is it 1060? He has a studio down there. He does lovely work. Some of it realistic, some of it digital, some of it impressionistic. Anyhow, he has a lovely program for us this afternoon, and he's bringing his passions together of photography and studying the Bible. So this is more about his impression of the genesis of creation, and I sure hope you'll join us. His artwork is lovely. Thank you. At 11:30.
Thank you, Penny. At this time, we will light our chalice for renewal of our faith. Each time we light the chalice, we renew our commitment to the Unitarian Universalist faith. With the spark of a match, we make it new again. As fresh and surprising as the first day, we encountered the spiritual community and realized we were home. We light this chalice for renewal of our faith. At this time, we will prepare for our service with Chris's piano.
Good morning. And I'm glad to see some younger people with us, and you won't have to stay here too much longer, but I'm so happy that you're here. And I know the time is going, but we have a little story and we have some singing, and so let me call us into this time of being together with words from Richard Gilbert. In the warm embrace of this community, we come to reckon who we are and how we are doing in the living of our lives. In this time of introspection and reflection, we come to acknowledge our faults and celebrate our virtues together. If we are honest with ourselves, we know how hard it is to be human, how very difficult to be all we wish to be. Constantly we do that which we ought not to have done, and we do not do that which we ought to have done. It's kind of a tongue twister, but here we admit the impossible possibility of living the good life. Here we determine, despite all the odds, to try. May what we are speak more loudly than what we say. May our very being craft a silent sermon that needs no words. May we maintain and cherish our integrity in the struggle to be good and do rightly. Let our inner and outer person be as one, that our doing flows as a fountain from our being. Let us have faith that if the soul is pure, the hands will do rightly. Let us risk being for others and forgive ourselves when we cannot. Let neither reward nor punishment nor mythical fear of hell nor lure of heaven distract us from our earthly tasks. Let us, knowing how hard it is to be human, nevertheless resolve here and now to try. I invite you to rise as your body or spirit allow, and we will say our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And our opening hymn, you may remain standing, is number 108, My Life Flows On.
Upwards
Thank you. You may be seated. So I have a short story written by my good friend, the Reverend Chris Bice, who serves the Tennessee Valley UU Church. He tells a story about two frogs. Once, two frogs were hopping through the forest when they accidentally hopped into a big churn of cream, so a big bucket full of cream. So that's kind of scary for some frogs because I don't know if they can swim in cream very well. The sides of the churn were so slick and slippery that there was no place to hold on, so the frogs had to swim in circles to stay afloat. After a long time, one frog said, "There's no hope. We're doomed to drown in this churn." The older frog said, "Don't lose hope. Life is a circle. There are bad times and there are good times. One must endure the winter to see the spring." The young frog was not so sure, and he said, "You're wrong. We're going to die, I tell you." And the older frog said, "We must keep hope alive. For if hope dies, we too will die. But if we keep hope alive, we will live to see another sunrise." But the younger frog was already starting to lose hope, and he began to sink down into the creamy liquid. "Keep hope alive." All yell with me. "Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive." And the older one was yelling that. And then the younger one started repeating slowly at first, "Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive." The more they repeated the words, the stronger they felt. And the more strength they had, the better they could swim in circles. And they swam and swam around and around in circles, and an amazing thing happened. They realized they weren't sinking anymore. What happened? Butter. The cream turned to butter. The two frogs were able to hop off the butter and out of the churn. They landed on the ground just in time to see a beautiful sunrise. The older frog said to the younger one, "Remember, my son, life is a circle. Despair may last for a night, but joy comes in the morning." And the two frogs hopped away into the woods. So we're here to keep hope alive, and we're here to also provide a solid religious education program and faith development for all of our young people. So any of you who would like to participate in that today are welcome to go with Linda, right? Are you in here, Linda? Who's leading our young ones to where they're going?
I'll lead them out.
Well, I mean, they're welcome to stay. I'd love for them to stay.
If they want to.
No, Linda and Tabitha are back
Linda,
there.
I know Linda has activities.
She is here.
Yeah. So we will sing you out and have fun, and I hope to see you later. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
It is that time of the service where we will collect an offering, and please keep in mind that our church is solely funded by contributions from our members and friends. And there are several different ways you may give. One's on the screen, texting. We have where you can do it making a pledge. And then also there is another method. Right, just auto, right. So if you need to find a way, we will help you find a way. But also for those who have filled out joys and sorrows, if you would put those in the collection baskets at this time, we would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Can we get the mic raised or the volume raised?
one of the ways that we continually keep ourselves connected is through the sharing of personal milestones and transitions of joy and sorrow. And so at this time we will do that. And I want to light, or have Denise light for me, our first candle for the loss of our very, very dear member, Bob Williams. And delighted that his family and people so close to him are here this morning. Lisa Rawson, who is our member and sings in our choir, and Lisa's sister Kristen is here, and Charlotte is here, longtime, good friend of Bob, and her daughter Ellen, who I'm delighted to see. And we did a service for Charlotte's son with Ellen, and some time ago now. July, yeah. So we're glad you're here, and we light this candle for all of you who are feeling this tremendous loss right now. Oh, and there will be a memorial service, a celebration of Bob's life here Tuesday at 1 p.m., this coming Tuesday. So, Marcy would like us to light a candle for her cousin who has, this is good news, it's a joy, has stabilized and had improvement with medication, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. She's feeling much improved and almost back to her normal self. So that's wonderful. We're so glad to hear that. And Lisa Rawson sent this one up. Joy that choir members came and sang at my dad, Robert Williams' bedside before he passed Friday. Yes, thank you, Laura, for helping make that happen. And, I was very moved. Lisa had someone make a video, and I knew, I talked with Laura about doing this, and later I thought that could be really hard for people who are not used to doing that, and especially if you have a loved one in your life that you're worried about at this time, and I thought about that also. But to come and stand by the bedside and sing with someone is really a beautiful gift of ministry. We hear that the hearing is the last to leave. And so, and I want to tell you that Lisa's friend Glenn told me that he watched Bob, who was unresponsive, breathing. And it seemed to him that he was breathing from his diaphragm like when you sing, and that it was going like I don't know. Anyway, there are things we don't understand. But I was so pleased that could happen. From Laura Keith King, a close family member has been struggling with thoughts of suicide. Thoughts and prayers will be appreciated. It's a hard time right now for a lot of people. We need to be paying attention to the people we care about and love. Let me see. There are a few written here and there. And one in an email from Dolly Berthelot, who wrote, I want to say thank you again to all the UUs who have offered help, deliveries, cards, text, emails, visits, calls, meals, goodies, etc. during my long multi-organ illness. The multiple specialists are trying to figure this out. I am much better now, using less daytime oxygen, and have just begun driving myself short distances for necessities. UUCP is not yet within my 10-minute drive limit, but if I keep improving and the pandemic keeps declining so that I feel safer with such exposure, I do hope to return soon. Deep thank you to everyone at UUCP who has shown kind support. Dolly. And also we learned yesterday that Lauren was in a car accident, and so she's not here today. She says she's okay, but she's kind of bruised up and needs to rest. So a candle for Lauren.
The car was totaled.
The car was totaled. Yeah, I read where somebody said seeing the car, they were really glad to know she was okay. I hope I got them all. If not, here is one last candle for all of those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, yet unspoken. Raise your hand if at any point you can't hear me. I'm not sure I'll know where to stand, but I'll do my best. Well, it's time for the sermon. So this story, it's kind of my story. Somebody sent this up with $5. I'm going to put it in here, okay? So I think it's supposed to be the offering, but I'll lose it if you leave it up here by me, or I'll take it home. So this story that I'm telling you is something that I pondered and thought about for quite a while after the event, which happened, as I looked back at this, like in 2004. But it is an ongoing attempt to live our faith in Unitarian Universalism. And so I'm going back 20 years, well, almost 20 years, to kind of tell you about some of beginnings of things. Even that wasn't the beginning, but things that we have struggled with and are still struggling with. So every year, when I was in school at Meadville Lombard, our theological school at the University of Chicago, we had, I went on a special program that every January I'd go for the month of January. And going, all day long, every day for a month, you get 3 courses in. But there was always so they called it a conclave, but like a conference that happened before we started on some particular topic. Like one year it was music, mind, and spirit, which was very enlightening and lovely. And then we started the Catalyst for Change Anti-Racism Conference. And on the second year, which I guess was 2004, there was a process that we engaged in that took me a couple of years to sort out before I actually spoke about it. And I think I'm still, we still sort through some of these things. But the conference was on racism and how elements of racism were part of the history of Meadville Lombard, the school. A school taking a look at its own sins or shortcomings is a pretty painful event, and it created a lot of controversy, as you can imagine. Former faculty, students, key people from the UUA, and from all across the denomination that were there, including our Unitarian Universalist Association president at that time, Bill Sinkford. And part of what led up to the conference was a heated debate that ran through the school after a white student accused a white faculty member of racism for not including black authors on the required reading list for the courses. This may have been the presenting problem, while other things were already stirring. During the conference, the facilitators let people come forward and invite whomever they wanted into a circle for a conversation. What typically happened was that former students came forward and called other former students and faculty into this circle of chairs while the rest of the people are sitting around and told of the injustices they experienced as African Americans in a mostly white school. At any time, someone could be called into the circle. What I witnessed was the entire range of emotions and reactions and responses to accusations of racism, and then reactions to the responses to the reactions and responses. Most of the time, it wasn't clear what had really happened, but it didn't matter, because what mattered was, in this process, was that the person believed. That was their experience. That was what they felt had happened. And once a conflict erupts, what started it or whether the argument is valid becomes unimportant. Determining that won't resolve what gets stirred up. There were tears and anger and sadness, and you wondered if the whole school was going to fall apart. And we loved that school. But out of it seems has come an ongoing commitment to wrestle with the structures that keep racism in place, and to continually challenge one another to be vigilant in watching for and not being complicit with systems that support and maintain racism. Now remember that most of this I wrote all that many years ago. So, you know, we've worked and developed and things have changed and all, but I'm going back to how it felt back then. At the opening of this year's conference that year, 204, the president of Meadville Lombard, Dr. Lee Barker, stated that we've learned how to be with one another around these issues. We are speaking the truth about our issues and dealing seriously with them. Standing in the hall near the nursery at First Unitarian Church of Chicago, across the street from Meadville Lombard, Lee Barker saw an article on the bulletin board about the book, Barbershops, Bibles, and BET. Some of you familiar with that book? The author, Dr. Melissa Lacewell Harris, do you know who she is? Okay. She was a news person. Well, I'll say more about her here. I think she lost her job for being too outspoken on, I forget, CNN or MSNBC or something. Lee Barker read that she was a political science professor at the U of Chicago and thought to himself, I want to meet her. Then he walked into the congregation and there she was. Melissa is a prominent voice in race, religion, and politics and a member in good standing at First Unitarian. In fact, she's a member of the Religious Education Committee, one of the RE teachers, and at that time she had a daughter in the nursery. Her mother chose the Unitarian Church, and Dr. Harris grew up in the Unitarian Church in Charlottesville, Virginia, in the shadow of Thomas Jefferson, she explained. She said they sang "This Little Light of Mine," but the words she learned, which I also learned, were "This little liberal light of mine." That's how we sang it in my church. Her father was a roommate of Stokely Carmichael and never went to church but held to a liberation theology. And when Melissa was old enough to talk with friends about religion and learned that spring and pollen. When she learned that people thought God was white, she thought, no way. Later, she came to understand God through Christian text and attended a Baptist church. Now, though, she is, as I said, a member in good standing, well, at that time of First Unitarian. But 3 or 4 nights a month, she would go to Trinity United Church of Christ. She said, I'm a Unitarian in the morning and a Trinitarian at night. I have real needs for a particular type of worship experience that I can only get in the African American church. In that setting, she seeks a communal racial experience and God. Political scientists she knows, since she is one, try to find what is wrong with what you believe. But knowing, she realizes, comes not only from scientific experiment and testing, but there is also the different kind of knowing that Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Angela Davis, and Maya Angelou talk about. A kind of knowing that comes through our gut, she said. I decided to look up the website for Trinity United Church of Christ and found their mission statement prominently displayed, and here's an excerpt. Trinity United Church of Christ has been called by God to be a congregation that is not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ and that does not apologize for its African roots. As a congregation of baptized believers, we are called to be agents of liberation, not only for the oppressed, but for all of God's family. We as a church family acknowledge that we will, building on this affirmation of who we are and whose we are, call men, women, boys, and girls to the liberating love of Jesus Christ, inviting them to become a part of the church universal, responding to Jesus' command that we all go into the world and make disciples. We are called out to be a chosen people that pays no attention to socioeconomic or educational backgrounds. We are made of the highly educated and the uneducated. Our congregation is a combination of the haves and the have-nots, the economically disadvantaged, the underclass, the unemployed, and the employable. The fortunate who are among us combine forces with the less fortunate to become agents of change for God, who is not pleased with America's economic maldistribution. W.E.B. Du Bois indicated that the problem in the 20th century was going to be the problem of the color line. He was absolutely correct. Our job as servants of God is to address that problem and eradicate it in the name of Him who came for the whole world by calling all people to Christ. So you can see her father's influence by her choice of religious community. She has a real problem with the perpetuation of the appearance that all African American people think alike and that the black politicians represent all black people. She's mad that, this is back then, Clinton didn't do what Bush had done with putting African Americans in political positions, but she also said blacks in politics are there to get the white, non-racist vote. We have a culture in Unitarian Universalism around our anti-racism work, and we have a language we use and an understanding that some feel came down from on high, which would be Boston. Tandeka, whose articles some of us see in the world, stirred things up with her book, Learning to be White, and opened the dialogue to some difference. But I don't know if that means, okay, so remember, this is a long time ago. I did not know at that time if her book would actually mean that you wouldn't get screamed at if you misspoke at a gathering because you weren't up with the current language, like if you thought it was still okay to say colorblind, or use melting pot instead of tossed salad, where all the vibrant colors show. So our language has been changing over many decades of this work. Dr. William Jones led some of the workshops a few years ago in which we adopted the definition, race prejudice plus the misuse of systemic power equals racism. And the literature for Journey Toward Wholeness, which was the name of our movement back then, reads, thus given white people's dominant role in the culture, racism cannot exist without whites' complicity, witting or unwitting. And it follows that racism cannot be removed from the culture without the active commitment of whites to use their power to this end. So the reason is that if you are white, you benefit from the racist system, making you racist also. That's the reasoning in using that word. Some of us have a hard time with the language because accepting that we are racist seems to put us in the same category as Bull Connor and seems to follow the same reasoning as original sin. But I tried not to let the language or the pain, anger, and frustration that I sometimes witnessed or directly experienced keep me out of the dialogue. Sometimes it requires some real work on my part not to take things personally, but I try to stay focused on the highest good, which is, after all, not about me at all. It is understandable that people would feel angry and discouraged that more progress has not been made, but I like that Bill Sinkford said, I like what he said when he spoke in Atlanta at one point. He said, we are failing forward. It's a slow go to change systems and social and political structures. But perhaps success and failure are not the only lenses through which we can evaluate. Perhaps it is whether or not we can endure and persevere in the struggle, learning as we go and adapting to new insights, allowing for exchange of ideas and creativity. That's the point that Melissa Lacewell Harris tries to make with her book when she points out that there's a lot of disparate conversation happening among the ordinary Black people, voices that seem to be left out of the political sphere, voices that might provide significant insight and valuable viewpoints. These are the voices she heard while listening as a social scientist in the places where ordinary people gather to talk and discuss, argue, and debate, like barbershops. The church, she says, can be an opiate or a source of inspiration. The tradition of call and response in an African American church might give one the idea that everyone agrees with the minister. She says the minister preaches to the choir because you're assured of getting a good amen. If the church is an opiate, it serves as a release and helps people cope with the Monday through Friday world of racial inequality. But there are inspirational models of church that serve as a base for political organization in slave religion and civil rights. In these churches were the psychological, social, and economic resources to help fuel a movement. We learn things in church that transfer to our politics or our ideology. It's not always right, she said, for us to try to purge religion from politics. And then speaking as a Unitarian Universalist, she added, we shouldn't be smug and pretend we don't do that, meaning letting our religion inform our politics. The ethic of reciprocity is found throughout religion. But then she asked, is compassion sufficient? In a just society, entitlements would be given out equally because you are human. Here is where she struck a nerve with a number of people in the audience, and the panel discussion became a response to her comment. To be a moral congregation needs to, to be a moral congregation, you need to be just, not caring. A caring society doesn't interest her. Compassion can be legislated, she explained, and we can't assume that everyone agrees with us. Citizenship should not be about compassion at all. Justice should be dealt evenly, not from compassion, because you are the beloved and they give you what they think you deserve. Loving spaces, which she believes the Black church can be, can still be silencing places. And diversity may not necessarily indicate acceptance of difference. In order to be part of the church, women may be silent. Gays and lesbians may be silent. Victims of domestic abuse may be silent. Creating inclusive community is about more than the presence of people who are different. This seems like something we could all give some thought to. Humanistic religion, she noted, specifically engages with the development of ideas that carry from Saturday to Friday. And then on the second day, Dr. Harris began telling us, I told my mom that I told the UUs I don't like compassion, and my mom said, oh no. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, she said, I don't give a damn about compassion. I guess I didn't write that in my sermon then. I'm not willing to throw compassion out of our principles, and I might have asked her if the kind of compassion she was speaking about would be more accurately described as pity, which is not a helpful emotion. Either way, I thought that what she said was good food for thought. And I remember that she said she likes to be outrageous when she talks because it opens things up to come to her. So she definitely opened up a conversation about justice and compassion. In my notes from her talk, I wrote, sometimes compassion is just a lot of talk. We give gifts that we want or what we think you should have. Compassion in the Buddhist sense is to be with someone, to walk with them and to know their story. I like that. But then she said, there may be places that we can't walk with people. On the topic of white people asking black people questions about being black, she told us that when she was about 17 years old, she just got mad and decided she wasn't answering white people's questions anymore. Wow, she thought, I live in a world where these people don't have to know anything about me. It's white privilege to even ask the question. Being biracial, she explained that her back was a bridge. The questions didn't come across to her as informational, but as judgmental. In the response from the panel, made up of students and professors, to her comment about justice and compassion, almost everyone had something different to say. One faculty member who happens to be white, gay, and male shared that for those of us for whom our learning style is not primarily auditory and who are big F's, feeling people on the Myers-Briggs, don't leave out the importance of compassion, meaning compatie, to feel or to suffer together, to feel empathy. We must begin from the person's identity. There is no monolithic gay culture, black culture, etc. Another faculty member, white and heterosexual, who raised a biracial son, explained the ache he felt to see his son, who had a degree from Yale and Stanford, live in a culture like Los Angeles, where he is often harassed by the police. His son raised UU, then went to a black college in Oakland so he could get in touch with that part of himself by which he is defined. Liza, a student who identified herself as lesbian, also white, pointed to all the tattoos she had that are about compassion and explained that she's trying to make herself nicer. Saying this to another member of the panel the evening before, this person told her, Liza, you know, you just don't come across as nice. And Liza said, I flipped him off. Another speaker pointed out that the UU model is integration. We want to bring people in. We need people who are not just the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of Jesus, and the neighborhood of Boston. And then he asked, what do we need to do besides the integration model? And a staff member who had been working at Meadville Lombard for at least 15 years, who seems to be in charge of overall building maintenance, who has a PhD in history, is African American, takes a very laid-back approach to all of this. We have no book, he explained, to tell us what is right or wrong. We each rely on our own moral conscience to see things. Being fair doesn't mean that if someone says you are wrong, that they are right. I'm not saying racism is gone, he continued. I'm saying behavior has changed. We need to recognize that change. If someone says to me, I don't see you as a black man, I see you as a friend, I wish they could see my culture, but if they don't, it's okay. I accept that. We have a culture whether anyone else recognizes it or not. So I think, as Unitarian Universalists, we may always struggle with how to achieve inclusive community in the very real sense and how to be effective in our work for a just society. But I'm proud to walk with people who take seriously the struggle and hope that it doesn't mean we become so self-righteous or perceive ourselves as so all-knowing that we can't be open to the possibility that there may be a better way. That we need to include many voices. And a sense of humor when appropriate and a little humility may go a long way in healing the brokenness in the world. So those were my thoughts about 20 years ago, and they're still my thoughts. Thank you for listening. Our closing hymn, this must be an oldie but a goodie that I've chosen, is Faith of the Larger Liberty.
Number 287.
Number 287. Thank you. And I heard some people talking about the hymns and the tunes, and that song was written by Vincent Silman, and I just shut the page. I think it said he died in 1979, but Vincent Silman wrote many of our hymns, and was one of the first chair people of one of our hymn book commissions. So the tune may be familiar, and the words might be, they're not new to Unitarian Universalists, but they may be different words, but they speak our kind of faith and liberal faith. In closing, more words from Richard Gilbert. And now may the rhythms of our coming together, the melodies of our worship, and the harmonies of our farewells make musical our living, soothing our spirits and uplifting our souls this day and into the beckoning future. Thank you for being here, and let us go in peace and stay for second hour.
Mention second hour will be in the conference room, because that's where his artwork is.
You saw nothing. You
Second
see
is
things.
Oh.
No,
I